Mwasibire muta, mwasibye mutya, amahoro, agandi, Bible, habari gani, muraho, sangonini, kopango, odeo. For those of you who are wondering what that was, these are some of the various local greetings found in East Africa's diverse languages. Welcome to SheCentre, the female podcast, where I dive into the issues and experiences that affect women everywhere. I am your host, Resti Kansime, and I am passionate about creating a safe space for women to share their stories and triumphs. I want to thank you for tuning into my podcast, and I would love for you to join our community and stay connected with us beyond this episode. You can find us on Instagram at _SheCentre_podcast and follow us on Facebook at the SheCentre podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and hit that follow and like button on our social media to be part of the conversation. Hey, welcome back to SheCentre, the female podcast. This is your girl Resti, and I am very happy to have you back here. If you're watching this on YouTube, this is Thursday, and if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your audio podcast, this is Monday. A special welcome to you, and I hope your November is going well. I cannot believe that the year is coming to an end. Where did this year go, you guys? I don't understand how the year has gone by so fast, but hey, I am a sucker for Christmas. Like, I am already looking forward to having snow for those who are living abroad. I love the snow season. For people back home in Uganda, you know, when you're Uganda, Kenya, wherever it is that you come from in East Africa or Africa, you know, that season when everyone is like flying back home like summers, and then they're selling all the Christmas decorations on the streets and playing the favorite music from, you know, back in the day. Oh my God, I love Christmas. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for the new people who are here. A special welcome to you. And in case you're wondering what's happening here, this new season, which just started, I think 2 weeks ago, this is my second interview in this new season. We are answering the question, are you living in your purpose? And I'm really, really happy about last week's episode. I'm so happy with the engagement that came through from Alethea's episode where she talked about, Alethea is probably a Gen Z. Is she? Yes, she's probably a Gen Z. Yeah, it's already good to talk to Gen Zs and seeing how they're, conquering life and making these changes in this world. But I was really happy to talk to her, and I'm very happy that you guys got to listen to her episodes. So today, I went all the way to Kenya, and my guest today is Joy Mueni Muli. Before I talk about what our discussion is about briefly, I would like to remind you to please subscribe, like, share this episode with anyone who you think will benefit from it. And also, don't only subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube, you can also listen to this podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Yes, and if you're listening to this on the audio pod, please head over to the YouTube channel and watch the episodes every Thursday. Yes, so let's get into it. My guest today is such a fun. Like, when I reached out to her, I was like, yeah, please, I would like you to come and talk about, your purpose. Because I felt like, she's a doctor. In case I didn't mention that, she's Dr. Joy Mueni Muli. I reached out to her, and she challenged me somehow, because I was thinking, she's a doctor. That's what's going to be like her topic of discussion, her purpose as a doctor, as a person who is healing people. But surprisingly, she was like, no, Resti, I'm trying to figure out what my purpose is in this season. And I had to think through this. I was like, okay, that's quite interesting, because on the outside, I was thinking, okay, she's going to talk about this. But Joy took me down a good discussion. I might say that it was really amazing to hear her story on how she is. I've seen her life from the outside, being able to observe her, Just to let you guys know, she considers herself a creative scientist, and this means that she's not only in the science field, like she's not just a doctor, but she's doing other things on the side in the arts. And that is, she plays, I think, the orchestra. She said she quit, but we'll find out why. She is a musician. She is a blogger. Her blog, I think, is called Bloom. Yes, she's a really good blogger. You should check it out. I'm going to add it in the show notes. She really is good at so many things. She also said she is a graphics designer. Like, she does that stuff on the side. So in this episode, she's going to share about where all this came from, how she has been able to navigate both the arts and the science world, which in many cases, when you're a scientist, people don't expect you to be a creative. But it's amazing how she does that. Joy is married to a Ugandan, so she is, we are kind of taking her to Uganda. We are bringing her to Uganda, I would say. But she, in this episode, is going to share so much wisdom. I love talking to her. I love the information that she gave about her life. Like, it made me see being a creative scientist. I didn't even know it was like a thing, but it made me see her in a different way. So I know you guys are going to enjoy this episode. So please tune until the end to hear everything about Joy and how she's able to navigate both these worlds and how she's going to answer the question, are you living in your purpose? Enjoy. I love you all. Bye-bye for now. Habari.
Barry.
Habari. It's interesting. I studied Swahili for 2 years and I do not know
Really?
anything
Oh my
in
gosh.
school. Our mwalimu was just those people who would just cram like before the exam, and then
then you
after that you're like,
pass and
get out here,
forget.
and then you pass. Yeah, he was so shy, so we used to tease him, and he would give us probably like easy papers.
Okay.
Yeah, but I regret why I didn't learn Swahili. Joy, thank you so much for making the time to
Thank
come
you.
onto SheCentre. I guess it's very exciting. Most of the people that I usually reach out to, it's either I barely know anything about you or I know you so much. But for you, it's more like I just know you, but I don't know much about you. So I'm excited. It's always exciting to get to know people. Because I've looked at your blog before, I've seen your content, and I feel like I have an idea of what your life is about. But one thing I have to tell you is you really challenged me when I reached out to you. I had a set of questions I had put on the side. I was like, okay, if I reach out to a person, they're a doctor, they're this, like, I know, like, they're living in their purpose, it looks like they are. And when you told me that's something you're still navigating and how it changes, I'm like, I need to go back and rethink this whole topic that I'm trying to discover, because I don't know if you listened to like my previous season, I focused on getting to know people. So just a brief background for you to get an idea. I know I haven't given this to you.
It's okay.
My goal is to start a platform, like a female platform. I'm not limiting it to any geographic region. I'm saying for now East Africa, because I feel like we have a lot in common. And to me, I feel like that's my purpose. Like in discovering myself, I felt like this was something I needed to do. And I was like, you know how you go and tell people, I have this vision. God has given it to me. This is how it is. And people are like, I don't get it. Like, people are like, that stuff is not going to work. First of all, digital platform, we don't like blogs. Like, we don't do this in East Africa. Like, where are you wasting your time? I'm like, okay. I will start a podcast, and in this podcast, I will slowly introduce people to the idea of what exactly am I trying to address in East Africa. And I feel like we are quite diverse. Like, starting from my own experience, we are diverse. Like, we have diverse cultures. We grow up differently, and I had to come and live in Germany for me to understand how different my experience was, like how I saw the world and everything. And yet there's a lot of resources here digitally that help people to navigate their everyday life. And yet back home, we are all there trying to figure it out, like on our own. You go online and Google, how do I do this? And you find yourself on a link in America telling you how to do something, but it doesn't really relate to
To
your
you
physical,
directly.
like your physical, exactly. So I figured um if you bring people together, like women who are doing different things, and create a platform where everything like that you need as a woman is, it might be a little
Is
bit easier
there?
for people. Yeah. But since people do not understand that this is necessary, I was like, okay, I will make a case. I will study this, because in like my long-term goal is to do a PhD. And I feel like
Oh,
these
come on.
long yes, I feel like I wanted to do research about like something that I'm passionate about, but I was like, I don't know what I want to do research about. But I
Do.
figured someone told me you can always start something that you're passionate about, and then along the way you could find a topic. So now I'm like, wait, a whole year has passed by, and I have questions from 40 people answering the
People,
question, what
wow.
happened to you? Like 40 people answered the question, what happened to you? So I'm like, okay, I need to now stop asking what happened to people. And I start to navigate, okay, this happened to you, but how are you navigating
How
your
is
life? Like, are
it?
you living in your purpose? How is life? So I was like, okay, the next year, I'm now going to focus on asking people, are they living in their purpose?
Their
If they're
purpose.
not, what is happening? Like, and what is purpose? You challenged me to have to go back and research this. I was like, okay, it's not like obvious that every person who is doing something they are good at is living in their purpose. So
Living.
one
Yeah.
person, a friend of mine from Kenya, I reached out to her, and I asked her if she could be on the podcast, and she's like, Resty, I feel like I don't need to be the one on the podcast. Like, I need this content for
To.
me to figure out what my life is all about. So I was like, thank you for saying that, because it's making me realize how many of us, it takes you to listen to
Don't
someone's
know.
story to be like, okay, so I'm not alone, and I'm so basically that's what I'm trying to answer in this season. And the main question that I'm trying to navigate is like the main question is, are you living in your purpose? But the main like the question I'm exploring is the evolution of purpose and the impact in women's personal and professional journeys. So the challenges, growth, and community support. And as we
Okay.
begin, I would like to ask, do you feel like you're living in your purpose right now? And how has your journey shaped this sense of purpose, if you are? If not, please explain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first I must admit that when you reached out to me, I was like, purpose? Okay. And as you said, I said I'm still figuring it out, and I don't
Yes,
think I'm
yeah.
an expert truly to speak about it, but I'll just
Sure,
share
sure.
my personal experience. And interestingly, this year is when I've been thinking a lot about purpose, and maybe I'll go into that a bit later. But truly, I think at the end of the day, I believe I'm living out my purpose. I'll have to start by saying I'm a Christian. And so for me, purpose means living out God's will for me. As the Bible says, He created us as masterpieces to do good works that He had planned in advance. And then I think this verse I remember from childhood. It's in Matthew 5 somewhere, but it says that do the good things you do so that people see and praise your Father in heaven. So I think that's
Yes,
the
yes, yes. Yeah.
landing place for me to know that, okay, if I'm living my life out for God, then I'm living out in my purpose. But that looks different
Yeah.
for all of us because we're all
True.
created differently.
Yeah, yeah, that's very
Yeah.
true. I appreciate that you started with that, because um of course our purpose, all of us as Christians on earth, is to glorify our God, like, and to bring glory to Him, so everyone who sees us can be like, okay, I see Jesus in you. And I think for many Christians, we kind of get lost. Many of us like can get lost in the busyness of life and what's happening,
Life.
and it takes a long, like, I literally I try to read books to understand certain things that I'm going to talk about. And this week I had to I'm not really in the space of reading books, because my life is like quite hard right
It's
now.
quite.
But yeah, but my husband was telling me about ikigai. I don't know if you know about the topic
The Jap
ikigai. It's like a book. Yeah, it's like a Japanese term. And
Japanese.
these psychologists, I think they are both psychologists, they wrote about happiness, and how the happiest people and the most people who live the longest are living in Japan. I was like, my husband was like, I can't read this book, but then I got the audio and I just went through it yesterday. I was like, thank God for
Oh,
audiobooks.
really? That's
Yes,
cool.
but why I'm saying this is, what's interesting is like, we are not as Christians, we're not the only ones seeking purpose. Like even non-Christians are out there, and many of the things they were saying in this book, they relate so much to what we are learning in Christianity, and yet these people are not Christians. Yeah. So that was something that I felt like I needed to say for any person out there who is not a Christian,
Not a
who might be like,
Christian.
okay,
Yeah.
this is not for me. They're going to talk about God. No, like it relates everywhere. Just so you know, guys. Yes. So do you want to like you said you're living your purpose because your God-given purpose. And you told me earlier that you're still figuring it out. So how do these
Okay.
two come together?
Okay, so let me just give a backstory. This year
Yes.
I experienced a huge transition for, I know you know, but maybe the listeners may not, but I
Yeah.
moved from Kenya, which is where I was living, to be with my husband in Uganda. And to me, that was drastic because it meant leaving my
Yeah.
work and going to a new place I'd visited, but living somewhere is different. And so in
Yes.
that season, I was okay, I also should give a background about myself. I'm a medical doctor and I'm also interested in the arts. And so I call myself a creative scientist because I enjoy science and reading and, the geeky stuff. But I also really love arts like music, writing. And so while at home, I felt like I went through a mini crisis because I had no work, which to me felt like what I do, the works, the doing, okay, yes, we're going to see a patient, yes, we're going to do this. But I was at home, and so I was asking myself, so what, am I worth anything because I'm not working? And so I had to demystify a lot of previous thoughts that I had that what I do is my worth, because even when I'm sitting at home and taking care of the house, it still doesn't mean that I'm not living out my purpose. It's just that it looks different right now. And so I figured through that season that season was for me to rest. And in my resting, then I was able to really think through everything that my life has ever been. Like, why am I here? Why do I really want to go and work in the hospital despite the long, crazy hours? And I think I summarized it for myself in that, or rather, even as I was praying, and I just saw healing as the word that encapsulates my life, because yes, I'm passionate about medicine, but I think that even the other things that I do, like cooking a good meal for at home for my husband and I don't know, like dressing, like interest in fashion, interest in music and singing and even writing and designing, all that, I feel like my goal is to heal through that if you see something that's beautiful or have a good meal, you will receive healing through it. And of course, in medicine, we give medicine to heal. So that's how
true.
I would summarize it for me. And I think it's taken some time to figure it out, because in the beginning I thought my life was so separate, like my work is here and then everything else I enjoy is on the other side. But seeing that they are all knit together, I think truly that's God helping me to be me in all the spaces I'm in, and still like bring joy and her essence into each space without fearing.
You've said so much that explains so much. Let me first break it down a little bit in how it's coming in my head. What you're saying is you have like, first of all, purpose is different in different seasons. And a purpose could mean I need you to just rest and rejuvenate and bring back your spirit, or like recuperate, and collect yourself together and come back stronger. And then also purpose could be in multiple, like it's not just a one thing. Like you could leave your purpose and your purpose is, okay, I have this job where I'm fulfilling my purpose. I am at home, I'm also fulfilling my purpose as a wife, and the content that I'm putting out there is also fulfilling this purpose. So that means purpose to you is something that affects your everyday life, like what you do has to be purposeful. And I think that's something that is very important, because they always ask, even the book that I was reading, but even in the Bible, it says, like, you have to wake up every day and ask yourself, God, why am I here?
Why?
Like, why am I on Instagram? Why am I in this room? Like, why am I seated in this room? Like, for instance, why are you here in this episode recording? You know, that's also purposeful, because whatever you're going to say could be used by God as an answer. It's a solution to someone else's problem. And I think that's something that many people wake up every day and are not aware of. So that means you wake up and just go to work and you think, I don't like my job and they're not paying me enough. Like you said, long hours. Why am I even doing this? And my husband doesn't do this and this and this. And let me just go to social media and scroll through, and you don't even see the purpose in you being on social media. Like, the content you're putting out there, it could be healing, like you say, to someone who is out there. Yeah. So that's something that's quite interesting. But I wanted to ask, have you, when you were growing up, like, have you always wanted to be a doctor? Because it's interesting how you just said, and I noticed this, you are really good in the arts. Like, you are someone who, not because of the smartness or whatever, but if I met you the first time, I would definitely not think you were a doctor. Like, I would think you're more into the arts until I find out you're a doctor. Yeah, because you are really talented, like in your singing, in your writing.
Thank
I've read
you.
your blog before, and you're dressing up and everything. I like that you have this like, it's not like, they said doctors are those guys just don't care. They care about only healing. So you broke that. So when you were growing up, was it something that you felt you wanted to be a doctor, or did it just come naturally to you that you were smart and you ended up being a doctor? Because some people are doing that.
I know. I have a lot of
Yeah.
classmates who just came because they got an A and it was what everybody
Yeah.
said they should do. I don't know, I have some small piece of paper which I wrote like when I was in primary school, and I wrote medicine, Dr. Joy, and I don't know where it came from. Seriously, I feel like it's just those things. Anyone who'd ask me, what do you want to do? I want to be a doctor. And maybe I didn't know the depth of what it was, but
Yeah.
in terms of the dichotomy, because for so long it was a dichotomy, it was like either you're smart and you're not into all these other things, or either you're creative and you don't want to do with books. And so it was a struggle for a long time, but I really thank my parents. I have to give a shout out to them, because like when we were young, it didn't feel so much of a dichotomy. Like, yes, my parents were very insistent on studying and making sure you read, but then my mom used to take me like for music classes, and my dad was like, yeah, you need to make sure your public speaking is good, and like I'd go for children's clubs. So it felt like that was what life should be. Like, you have church, which you're faithful to, you have school, which you're faithful to, but you also have these other things which make you happy that you should do. So my brothers did not really subscribe to this. They were like, me, I don't want music, I don't want this. So at some point I ended up being the only one in the house who's like being taken for stuff. And I at some point I was like, why am I stressing myself? Or I should just stay at home and chill and play. But I have seen the benefit down the road, because even in med school, this one in med school, we'd go like for anatomy classes on Saturday mornings, and that would be just like extra classes if you want to go and read. But then I had orchestra, because at that point I was playing the violin. That is a thing I no longer do. But I said, let me just wash my hands with this instrument. But then I used to play. And so we'd have practice in the afternoon, but they were coinciding with school. So all of my friends, they just used to go for the classes till 4 p.m. But at 12, I'd say, guys, I'm going for orchestra. They're like, what is this orchestra you're going for? Like, why can't you just come? We study, we have an exam. But it felt like an escape for me, where I can go. Because music is as intricate as medicine, in that you need to count beats, you need to play in sync as a team. Like, there's so many, and I think I once wrote a blog post on how music helps me practice medicine and vice versa, because there are so many similarities in the doing of both. But then to the outside person, it's like, oh, you're wasting time. You should be studying
Yes,
rather than
yes.
doing music. But later on, like we had a whole group, a quartet, where we'd play at weddings and earn money. And people asking me, Joy,
Wow.
you're earning money from your music, yet you're in med school, and there's like a time we were on a 1 year break. Imagine 1 year break from med school. What were people doing the whole time? Sitting at home, relaxing. But me, I
You had
had
stuff to
started
do.
a
Yeah.
business. I had things to do. So I feel like I've had a
Yeah.
complete life, and it really brings a lot of joy to me knowing that even though my one side of my life
Wow.
stops, doesn't mean that my life in totality will
Wow.
stop.
It's so amazing how you've explained it, because normally would be hard for, like, you were right, like, most times when you're studying, people, like, society expects, if you're smart, focus on books,
On one,
yeah, like, focus on one thing. But the interesting thing is, even this book was saying, like, passions, like, you need to find a passion that you love, where where you flow, like, find where something where you disappear, and that thing will help you to always distress, like, you can see they were saying, like, many people, like, I think Albert Einstein, he was also like, he used to write music, right? Well, he was also a physicist, and they gave him as an example. I think it was Albert Einstein. I hope I'm not. I hope I'm not right. I'm guessing he is
We'll
a physicist.
confirm.
Yeah, yes, we'll
Yes,
confirm. But
he
yes,
is.
they were saying, like, he was not only a physicist, but he was also good at music, and both of these things used to help him, because he was equally good. Like, he was writing music, but also, like, and he used to play an instrument. So I think that's something that not only makes you feel like, okay, like how people are sports, like, I'm into sports, and then they break their leg, and that's it.
And
They lose themselves. They don't know who they are. Like, the pandemic came to show us some of these things. You wake up every day and do something, and then they're like, oh, sorry, this is not
can't do it
happening anymore.
anymore.
And now you have to go back to the drawing board. I was like, okay, if this has been taken away from me, then who am I? Like, who am I? But for you, what you're showing us is like, okay, if medicine is not there, I can always do this. But also, this helps me to find joy in doing my medicine. And I think that's something that's very amazing. I think for many people to find joy in things that come easy to them, as long as you're not struggling. Because I didn't hear you say, yes, I struggled, because you find joy in them, like your name. I keep saying the word joy, which is your name. You find joy in them, not because they forced you to do them. Maybe your parents were like, okay, you just need to do this and this and this, but you have found why these things are helping you and how they can be of use to you in so many things, so many areas of your life. But do you ever find it challenging? Like, do you ever find any challenges in this busy life of yours that you're living? Are there some of those days where you're like, I don't have to do this? Like, you just said, okay, you're dropping this instrument, but are there other days, other stories which you can share, where you've woken up and you're like, no, I'm not gonna do this
it's
anymore.
not a must.
Yeah, I'm not gonna die for this music.
True.
Yeah.
Let me see. In terms of, I relate deeply with the story of Mary and Martha in the Bible, where Mary was focused, sitting at Jesus' feet and listening to him, but Martha was busy in the kitchen. And it's true, she was hospitable, but Jesus told her that, yeah, Mary has chosen what is important. And so I think I alluded to it earlier when I was talking about the doing, where even though, like, it's something that you love, like music or even medicine, it's easy to get burnt out. And I have reached such levels before, especially with medicine.
Yes. Yeah.
Where it becomes waking up in the morning, going to work, seeing patients, and every single interaction with patients feels draining. And I think that's because of the doing without taking breaks. So like Martha, imagine a friend of mine when I was 17 bought me a book called Being a Mary in a Martha World. I was like, how are you able to see this in me at this age? Because
I
I felt
know.
very judged. I was like, you think I'm just doing things aimlessly? But he's like, no, you need to focus and understand that truly there are times for rest, and resting doesn't mean you're of no worth. But also, even
Yeah.
when you're doing, making sure you're balancing it so that not one area is suffering on while another is thriving. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that is the main challenge, like just being a busybody, like doing so many things without categorizing in seasons, that truly in this season this has to go, so that I can continue being whole being rather
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
stressing a lot. In terms of other challenges, I would say also fearing and doubting myself and my capabilities. I think I remember people used to say, when you approach 30s is when you'll truly know yourself. I'm like, maybe that's what is happening to
That's
me
why it's more
because
confusing.
because before I used to be like, am I really a good, like, am I going to be a good doctor? Am I creative and as at things that I do, which feel like they come naturally to me, but I've compared myself and stacked myself against the best in the world
Yeah.
and imagining that
Yes.
even the little that I'm doing is not substantial,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
taking myself out of rooms even before even
You
getting
get
into
into
them.
them. Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of self-doubt, fear, anxiety has been a big challenge for me. And I think with time, and even just with help from people around who have been able to call out that greatness in me and be like, Joy, we see this in you, and so please continue doing it. Don't stop just because you're tired. Like, take a break,
Yeah.
but continue doing it. Yeah.
That's really amazing. And describing your life, I'm thinking of Hosea because he's also a busybody. Hosea is also a
Mm-hmm.
busybody, and I think you guys, do you find it okay? In case anyone is wondering who is Hosea, Hosea is her husband,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yay.
I'm just imagining. Do you guys help each other, knowing that you're similar? Do you have that space where you're
Mm.
like, babe, because you guys do everything together, and
Mm.
I'm an observer. Yeah, I'm a very good
Mm-hmm.
observer, I believe.
Mm.
And I observed in the time when I was around the both of you, I observed that not
Mm.
only do you do the same things, but you seem to know each other very well. And there are times where
Mm.
I'll be like, no, she's not gonna do this, or this is not what she would want to do. Is that something
Mm.
that you think is helpful? And do you think there is
Mm.
also joy, like once again,
Mm.
in having ended up with someone who understands you and understands what exactly your life is like?
That's a very interesting question. I honestly would say that Hosea has been God's blessing to me in I mentioned there are people who call out God's purpose in you and see it and
Yeah,
affirm you, especially in the
yeah.
area of self-doubt. For example, I do graphic design as a part-time thing, and that's also
Wow.
something that I really
I
enjoy.
didn't even know
But
this one.
I
You
don't
really
talk
are
about
doing
it.
everything.
I don't talk about it much because I've been like, hey, there are
Wow.
people who are like serious graphic designers, but mine has been a hobby
Ah.
for a very long, I think since high school. So, of late, like I've been in places where I see, like, where the hospital I was working prior to my transition into going back to school, they needed someone to do like the website and the graphics for them. And he was like, no, you tell them and you tell them to pay you. I was like, pay me? Like,
Yeah.
anyway, so I did it. I did the work and I sent to them, and everyone now at work was like, "Oh wow, this is really great. You do this for like, how much should we pay you?" Hey, didn't I run back
Wow.
to Jose and be like, "Yeah, we need to come up with a rate card,"
Business
and
plan.
exactly, and I would never
Wow.
have done it or even put myself
Oh,
out there if he
yes.
hadn't like pushed me.
Yeah.
So he does a lot of that behind the scenes where he's like, this is something I know you're good at and it's something I know you'd enjoy, but you're afraid of either speaking out or even you're not sure how it will go, whether people will accept you. He's like, try anyway. What's the worst that could happen? They could say no, and then you move on. So so many places. I can't even count so many instances where he's been the I call him the wind beneath my wings, where he's like carrying me as I go up and supporting me. So it's been helpful. And for me, who's a words of
Wow.
affirmation type of girl, when he
Yes.
calls that out in me, even though I don't believe it, I'm like, okay, you see it in me. That's great. And then many other voices amplify what he initially said. So he's been
Yeah.
really supportive in that way.
That is so I like how you said it, and one thing that has stood out to me is you said something about you don't feel like you're good at, and
Mm,
maybe you can expound more on this, because I can
mm,
imagine they say society says you can't be good at everything, that's why you need to focus at a certain thing, and because
mm-hmm,
that's how it is said in many cases,
mm,
like you said, like you didn't go to school for graphics design, yeah? But
mm,
when you're doing it, you forget that you didn't go to school
mm,
for it, even if you're
mm,
good at it. And yet, I don't know if that's something that where you're in medicine, when you're treating a
mm,
patient, if there are also those doubts where you compare yourself to
mm,
someone better, or are those comparisons only in the situations where
mm,
there are these passions of yours, like in music or whatever, where
mm.
you know, I didn't go to school for this, I'm not a professional at this? Are those the only areas where you feel like you have to compare yourself to people who are better than you or people who are professionals, or does that apply everywhere else in your life?
Across.
Mm,
Uh, I think it's more on my creative side. I don't know why,
mm,
but
mm, mm,
that's where I easily pit myself against other people, because I
mm,
think,
mm,
like in medicine, yes, there's how we are taught how to do things, and people
mm.
inject their own spice into it, because not everybody can be calm and quiet. Some doctors have
Mm.
jokes. I think that one I
Yeah.
haven't struggled as much in terms of my personality. I'm like, okay, this is how I do medicine, and this is how I would
Mm,
love to be treated. And at
mm,
least there are scientific guidelines that I can follow. If I don't know, I search and I find it.
mm.
But like in
Yes.
the creative arts, where how am I supposed to know which color palettes go well together? Like some of these things, I feel like somebody should just teach me how to do it.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think I've somewhat debunked that myth as I've gone along, because even like the physicians who were there a long time ago, there were some things which they call anecdotal practice. Like they do it because they've seen it working. So that's something that you can, like, because you can't question somebody if they say, oh, I gave the patient this medicine and it worked, because it worked. Like you can't question their
Yeah,
experience. But I don't know
yeah,
why when it's on the creative side, you're like, how are you sure it works? How do you know the colors? Like it starts
mm,
becoming a lot of
yeah,
poking holes at people's creativity. And yet I think
yeah,
creativity should be personal, like how I design or
yes,
how I
yes,
dress, how it's all
yeah,
because of you,
yeah,
like how you dress and me how I dress, it's going to be different
yeah,
because of our personalities.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's been tough to be able to reach
yeah.
this place where
That's
I'm like, yes, I know I've not gone to school, but I think these things come naturally to me and
they
I
come
can learn
naturally to you.
along as
Yeah,
I go.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
really have to go to
That's
school to be great at it. Mm.
that's
But
that's
I
quite
have to
that's quite
put in the
interesting.
work.
Yeah, I can imagine, because at the end of the day, if you feel that you're not good enough at something, then you're going to do the work to get better at it.
Mm.
But I
Mm.
like how you say that you don't. Of course, I predicted that's what you were going to say, that you don't question yourself
Mm.
when it comes to medicine. But I'm wondering, could it be
Mm.
because medicine is like, this is how it
Hard
is,
and
like read the
fast.
book, like this there?
Maybe.
But art is more relative. Like
Mm.
you could draw the best painting, and I would look at it and be like,
Mm.
and then other
You
people, like
don't
other
like
someone
it?
else, exactly, yeah. There's this thing that I always hear, that they
Mm.
got this artist who is like someone, I think he plays the orchestra or something, like he's like one of the best, people pay millions of
Mm.
pounds to go and see him, and they got him
Mm.
and put him in a train station to play,
Mm.
and no one stopped, like people were
Oh,
just
paid
passing by, and like they were
attention.
like they were like "Pff,
Mm.
no." So that means um like it's relative. Like it could be maybe one person stopped and said, "Oh, this music reminds me of this celebrity or whatever it is." But it also could be that people are just coming to see your show because it's cool, you know. It's cool to come and see your show. So you are right. It's really hard to impress people in
People.
the art in the art industry. Even how you dress up, like your makeup could piss someone off. Your makeup could be the one
Also,
thing that is like, oh, I don't like her because she wears red lipstick. She looks like this and this and this. So it must be challenging for a person like you who is talented in so many arts. Like your talent is in so many things in the art industry, and yet you are navigating them not as a professional. So there's also that aspect of someone saying, yeah, like, but you're not, like, you didn't even study it, you know, you
study.
didn't study it. Maybe that's why. And them questioning something that you're actually really, really good at
Good. Yeah.
because you didn't go to school. Do you find yourself having those kinds of battles with people where, for instance, if you know you're going to maybe sing for someone or do any project for someone where they have to pay you and they have to pay you less just because you didn't go to school for it? Do you find yourself in that situation?
Interestingly, I feel like it's all in our minds because at
Yeah.
no point, like even at the hospital, they didn't question and ask me. Like once they
Yeah.
saw the
Yeah.
work and saw that it's good, they're like, okay, let's pay you. But
Yeah.
me, I'm the one who discounted myself because, oh, I'm not a
So it's you.
professional. And so
Yes. Yes.
I think it's a lot in our minds. And even when you were speaking about the example of the pianist, I think I've seen that video before, and also recognizing that there are certain spaces that will honor your excellence and others won't. But then
Yeah.
now it's up to you to choose which voices you listen to. And that's been
True.
a true uphill journey for me. Because even at the
Yeah.
beginning, when you were talking about the podcast and how some people maybe didn't get the vision, I feel like there are those people who get it and will run with you. And so
Yeah.
focus on that
Exactly.
and run with it.
Yeah.
Those people who
Yeah.
don't get it will get it along the way. If they never get it, so
Yeah.
be it.
Exactly.
But
Yeah. They weren't meant to
I
get
think
it. Yeah.
I've lived in a lot of, trying to people please, where
Please.
everybody
Yeah.
should think that whatever I'm doing is great, that my plan is amazing.
Yes.
But I don't think it's realistically possible
Yeah.
that everyone
That's
will
true.
agree with you all the time.
That's very true. That's very true. And I think that
Yeah.
sets so many people free. Of course, we're human beings who would like someone to look at your art and be like, wow, beautiful. I like this.
Wow.
But I like how you answered this, that you said it wasn't even them. And I think you're very true because if you are a person who is good at something, like for instance, if I just learned medicine from Grey's Anatomy and I came to give advice to someone, you know, and I'm like, yeah, this is how you need to be treated. I would be second guessing myself. Like I'll kind of feel like an
Yourself.
imposter. I would feel like an imposter in that season, even if what I'm saying is actually right.
It's
I would be
true.
having this,
Yeah.
I would be having this thing of, man, I'm just out here winging it. I've learned these things on YouTube or on a movie. But so that means like our purpose can also be impacted by where we have gained the art from. So many people, unfortunately, probably feel like, okay, it's not my purpose if I didn't go to school. Like, for
School.
instance, if I'm really good at counseling people and talking to people, and people come to me and they ask for help, and someone says, you should actually be a psychologist or maybe get into like counseling and get paid for it. I would probably be like, even if I give better advice than someone who went to school, I would definitely, if I'm to start a business, I would charge like way less, or even be like,
Less.
really, can someone pay just because the society or the university has not validated me as a good person? And yet there are gifts that God has given us that have no explanation. Like
Naturally.
you're just
It's
naturally
true.
good at something, and because you are good at that something, you should not question it. You should believe, because no one else is going to believe it for you. So that's quite eye-opening, because I am also trying to be a person who focuses, because being in school, I believe I struggled so much because I wanted to belong everywhere. Like I was in a, like one time my teacher phoned me going to a math and physics like conference or
Contest.
whatever it is, and he's like, what are you doing here? Because I was the limelight of entertainment. I was practically the entertainment queen. Like there is no club I did not belong to. Let it be Scripture Union Club. I was in Arts Art. I was this. I was like, I wanted to be in everything. Like I was in the choir. I was in this. I wanted to do everything. And to me, I felt like it's fun, it's exciting. I want to do different things and I don't see any problem with it. But there are so many people. And then in class, I wasn't doing bad. However, it did come to a point where it affected, like the fun would affect how I perform, but not because I wasn't good at it, but it's only because of the teachers. Because I performed well in the classes where my teachers were giving me the time and the attention that I needed. And eventually I changed schools and I went to another school and I started failing sciences.
Good.
I used to perform well at sciences, not like very, very good, but I performed well at them. But I did not consider myself like a science person, like 100%. Like I was like, yeah, this is something I can do, but I'm really good at arts. So maybe this is where my thing is. So I always wonder, I was like, if I had a teacher who noticed that I really liked everything and they didn't have to make me choose which side I belong to, could I have excelled at both of them? And I think that also goes to speak to parents and teachers and leaders in communities to understand that if you find a person who is gifted at everything, encourage them and help them to navigate it rather than telling them this is where you belong. Because if you choose one of them, because there's always that part of me that always says, if I hadn't made this shift in my life, like would I still be struggling at math right now? Like would I be finding these challenges in life? Or what would my life have been like? What kind of person would I have been like if I had a teacher who actually noticed that I loved sciences, but I also loved arts and helped pour that into me? So this really speaks to us, like to be kind to ourselves, to be our cheerleaders and not expect other people to be the ones to cheer us up. But it's really good to have a Jose, of course, in your life.
Yeah.
And also it speaks to parenthood. As a parent, it's important for you to know that you probably get a child who is talented at everything. And sometimes the funny thing is there are parents who are forcing their kids to be multi-talented, and yet there are others who are telling their kids focus on one thing and excel at it. Yeah. So that's the irony of life, I would say.
It is.
All right.
Huge
I have one more question. So this might not like relate so much, but I'll ask it and then we can navigate it together. So looking ahead, how do you see your purpose and contributions growing? And what role do you think a platform like SheCentre can play in supporting women through this process of discovering and evolving their purpose?
Okay. Well, definitely, I'd like to pursue oncology, which is the study of cancer and its treatment. And so I'm going to be a great oncologist in Africa and beyond.
Amen.
But also one who heals in other ways, such as like music and art, as I've mentioned. I think you're doing a really great job already in terms of sharing people's stories. I really enjoy listening to people's stories because I feel like each one of us, our life has a lesson
Something
to anyone
in there.
else.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And even getting inspiration from people and knowing that you're not alone, that all of us at some point have questioned what our purpose is. So I think that's something that you as the SheCentre podcast can continue to do. I think also, gathering like-minded people so that you encourage each other. I think hearing your story and even listening to more of the episodes you'll do about purpose, I'll be able to get encouragement from them in one way or another. So I think those are the things that SheCentre can do. And I would say I support your ambition. I think there's need
Thank
for a
you.
lot more stories out there of East African women, just so that we know that we're able to
Yeah, to
set
do it.
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so
Mm.
much, Joy. That was very great, and I enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate your
Thank you
time.
so much for having me. This is my
Yeah.
first podcast invite, so this will go down in history
Yay!
as the first podcast I
Thank
ever
you.
attended. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you too. Please help me spread the word by sharing our episodes with your friends, family, and followers. Let's amplify the voices of women, break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and create a network of support and empowerment. Together, we can bring about positive change and make this world a better place for all. This is SheCentre, the female podcast, where women's stories matter. I love you all. God bless.